Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous, and welcome to the Twin Peaks Thought of the Day for Saturday, August 5th, 2017. My guests so far today, because there could be more coming in, we don't know. We have Eric.
Good to be here.
And we have Tony, who's a longtime viewer of this channel. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Thanks, Cameron, for having me finally.
Got some cool news in the mail today. Got a big box about this size, and look at this dent. I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? I got the 2017 Comic-Con exclusive of Cooper and Laura in the Black Lodge Funko Pop. I like how his coffee's pouring out.
Gorgeous.
Some people are saying that Cooper should have black eyes instead of white eyes.
Yeah.
And of course, that dent in the box. Well, you know, here's there's the reason why there's dent in the box there. But this is a Comic-Con exclusive, so I had to get this one just because I thought it was super cool, especially since she's in the meanwhile pose.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest ones I've seen out there.
So I believe you can still find this online, and it's not going for that expensive yet. Maybe on eBay it is, but there are other places and links that you can find it where you can get it for under $30. So why don't we start with Tony? How did you come to the original series, and what do you think of the new series so far?
Well, I started watching the regular series with my mom. Was back on when it came on Bravo back when they were airing it, and I fell in love with it. And then I found the movie Fire Walk with Me, and I watched it. And at first, I kind of was blown away about it. I'm like, man, this is totally different. But as I became older and got into more of Lynch's work, I really love it. I think it's one of his best movies he's done. And since there, I just became a big Twin Peaks fan. And with the new season, I love the new season. I think it's great. I mean, I really enjoy it. It keeps you anticipation's high every episode. You don't know what's going to come. And I mean, I just think that it's all, I feel like Lynch is going to bring us all to, it's all going to end on the right note. I think everything's going to come together. I think the patient fans, there's going to be a big payoff for it.
So you are one of those fans who still has the faith.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, you know, after 25 years, I just can't see Lynch disappointing all of us once again.
Some people might say, I'm not one of them, but I'm trying to play devil's advocate for the people who aren't on this podcast to state their voice. Some people would say that Lynch is already disappointing them. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I came into this series with open-minded. Like, I mean, people want the same characters be the same, but 25 years ago, I was not the same person. You weren't the same person. Things change. Towns change. Mood changes. It's a different time period. So you got to remember that we're in the Twin Peaks of today, not of back when it first came on. That's how I came looking into the series.
The original series is one thing. I would say let's even break it up even more. Season 1 is one thing.
Right.
Season 2 is another thing. Fire Walk with Me is a completely different animal. And this new series is something different. So almost every incarnation of Twin Peaks is different from the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because season 1 has some supernatural, mystical things about it, but it's pretty straightforward compared to where season 2 is going to go, right? And then Fire Walk with Me takes that to a different level, and then this new series really ups it to another level. So, I think that people just need to contend with the fact that every new incarnation, even Mark Frost's book, Secret History of Twin Peaks, is a completely different animal than the Diary of Laura Palmer or the secret tapes of Agent Cooper and that type of thing. So
yeah, I like I mentioned before the show, I ended up actually getting a Twin Peaks shirt through Loot Crate before I was a fan myself. But like years ago, I saw a little bit of Eraserhead, so that was sort of my introduction to David Lynch. Then I watched Elephant Man with my mom when I was a kid. But but I didn't put all the pieces together as far as like, this is all, David Lynch, this is his flavor. But it always kind of caught my eye and my interest. But anyways, once I got the shirt, I'm like, I like this shirt. I should probably watch the show to be allowed to watch this shirt or to be allowed to wear this shirt. So,
excuse me. When did you watch the show?
When did I watch the show? It was pretty recent. I watched the show starting this year. Actually, I got onto Netflix. I binged the whole thing.
Okay, I need to know how did you get on this podcast?
Oh, I know. Well, when I finished, yeah, I knew this was coming. But I watched the show, and then I saw the new one was coming out. So I got into that. I was like, okay. So after I caught up with the show, the relaunch of it, I watched the rest of Eraserhead, watched a few more David Lynch movies, and just. It's interesting. I'll pick up on what Tony said a little bit about whether or not, you feel disappointed about things that have been going on, or whether fans feel disappointed. I find when you look at like David Lynch, what I found about him is, I feel like everything he does is like really intentional. So I feel like even if I don't, like what I'm feeling as I'm watching something, it's like the feeling I have inside is what he wanted me to feel. And so it's like, okay, I don't like where Cooper's at this point, or something like that. It's like, okay, but the longing or whatever I'm feeling for him to come back, it's what Lynch is trying to make me feel right now. And so where I'm going to end up when the series really picks up and something changes, whether it's what I was expecting or not, or what I was hoping or not, it's what he wanted. And so,
but that's getting into dangerous territory, I think, because that's like saying that the mugger wanted you to be scared and beat you over the head, so therefore the mugger was successful. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that it was a pleasant experience. You know what I mean?
No, but the point's not necessarily to have a pleasant experience, is it? It's to experience, I mean, if you've developed more or less a trust in what Lynch is doing and whatever art he puts out. Obviously, the only point I'm making isn't even so much to say what his intention is. I mean, I'm hoping it's good, but the point is, I think a bad director has an intention to make you feel something, but he doesn't accomplish that goal. That's what makes bad art to me. And I'm hoping, obviously, that I like how it turns out, but I'm just really, what I've come to appreciate, though, is that I feel like I'm in the hands of someone who's accomplishing what he sets out to do, and so I can respect that however it turns out. And so I guess that's what I've really come to appreciate in the show.
But say you're a new fan, so
yeah,
how this thing ends. I mean, you came to the series relatively new, so you're it's like it really doesn't really matter to you how it ends, does it? Whereas like for us who have been with it for 30 years,
right,
it's kind of more important how it ends.
Well, I mean, only you can know what you want in that regard. I mean, you could tell me what you think about that. I mean, I'm obviously interested, but
well, no, I'm just saying that the like I'm fine however they end it, as long as it feels like it's an earned ending, whatever they get to.
An earned ending, yeah,
right. Whatever that is. But I will tell you that yes, I'm incredibly invested in how this thing is going to wrap up however it wraps up. I'm incredibly interested. If it wraps up where we kind of are right now, it's going to leave a lot of fans disappointed.
Well, where we are right now. Well, yeah, that's well, I mean, as I followed some of the talk about it, I mean, it is looking like, I mean, the pace sort of slows and then it ramps up again at different points. And so it's like, it looks like it's obviously slowed this past episode. It's definitely not the most riveting one that's come around. But
that's the funny thing is, to me, I've had episodes where I was like, I don't know how I feel about that one overall. I liked it, but I don't know, and people are telling me, no, it's great. It's masterpiece, blah, blah, blah. And then this one, I'm like, hey, you know what? I think like 85% of this thing is fantastic. And everyone's telling me, no, it was terrible. So,
well, yeah.
I mean, everybody's
in the eye of the beholder, as they say, but
exactly. So it's it's fascinating. So many people are like on the flip opposite of other people when it comes to this show. There's some people who are. I mean, I've talked with so many people who have already canceled their Showtime subscription. I mean, they're done.
Oh boy. Yeah.
They just said they'd wait for the Blu-ray set and pick it up later.
Yeah, I got people at work that started watching it and they already gave up to it.
Well, come on. I mean, this. Now this new debate going around is, well, this isn't for hardcore Twin Peaks watchers. This is only for hardcore David Lynch watchers. And I don't know about that, but I will say that even after that first night, there was no way any casual viewer made it through those 4 episodes. And if they did and continued watching, they're not watching anymore.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Totally.
Yeah, I guess to follow this new one, there does have to be a crossover. You have to be both a David Lynch, someone who appreciates David Lynch and appreciates the original Twin Peaks to get the crossover, because there were so many other, artistic hands, in the original series, that if you don't get kind of what maybe David Lynch was trying to get back to in this new series, perhaps. I mean, I can't speak for him, obviously, entirely, but
well, for a lot of people, I think they wanted something that resembled the original series,
right?
That actually had like a through storyline that did not feel like it was meandering every 5 minutes with new characters being introduced every 5 minutes. So, I mean, from their point of view, I can understand it. I agree with Hal, who's in the comments right now saying, how could anyone stop watching after 12 episodes? Because if you've I can understand stopping after 5, maybe 6,
right.
But 12, you might as well just, finish it out. It's you've made it this far. You got 6 episodes to go. It's only a few weeks more because the last 2 parts are together. So I don't know. It's interesting. Stephanie in the chat says, my one guess is that Audrey this week will ask the title of this week's episode, which is "What story is that, Charlie?" We basically concluded that was probably going to be maybe the opening line of the part.
No, it's the log lady. Come on.
Yeah, she's given 4 of the titles so far. So,
okay.
Voltaire in the chat is saying old school fans are not stopping after 12. They are still okay with it, just not totally loving it. That's majority of them, yes, but there's a lot of old school fans that they're done. And again, it's like I'm just fascinated by this because I love the show. I do love this new series. But since I was there when the original show was on, I can see where people are having issues. Doesn't mean that I have the same issues or anything, but I can understand where people are coming from. And it's not season 1, it's not season 2, it's not even Fire Walk with Me. This is a completely different thing. I mean, it's a completely different thing that has its roots in the original series, but it's not Twin Peaks season 3. It's almost Twin Peaks season 25 because it's 25 years later.
That's interesting. Yeah, maybe I'm just the kind of guy that at least with movies, I could never walk out of a movie in a theater once I've started it. It's
really? Oh, I have many times.
I've never done it. It's like, even if it's terrible, it's like, all right, well, let's at least get through. I mean, and maybe I haven't subjected myself to quite a bad enough movie, but I mean, particularly with Twin Peaks, where it is clearly very good, even if there's flaws, I'm not going to walk out after 12 episodes. It makes no sense to me.
But what's interesting is I've talked with several David Lynch fans who will tell me there has not been one misstep so far in this new series at all.
Yeah.
And I understand that they want to be able to see the whole thing and then be able to say this was a misstep. But you can feel something is a misstep one week and then 2 episodes later go, oh no, they corrected it, but it's in the moment you can feel like something might be a misstep.
Yeah. That's the difficult thing is like it's like you can't know absolutely for certain whether something in any given episode or a movie or whatever was not intended to communicate what it did, like emotion wise or whatever. You can't make that kind of judgment. But at least as far as this series goes, there's been enough like connections made between episodes, enough like emotional beats that have happened that I followed that I'm like, well, clearly that was intentional, and I appreciate what was just accomplished by that, and that it's like they're hitting enough of the beats they're trying to, that it's kept me at least this far, and I'm going to finish it.
Well,
yeah,
I find it amazing that someone could just stop, but at the same time, though, I get it. If you're done with it, it's better to hop off the train than just sit there and continuously get disappointed. But I would always be nervous that the moment I jump off, it would just all of a sudden become the greatest TV show of all time right after that. Everyone's saying they wish there was more Sarah Palmer scenes, and I agree. I mean, she showed up in episode 2 and then didn't show up for 10 more episodes until part 12. So I mean, it's kind of a bummer because I mean, from those teasers before the show started, I mean, she was heavily shown, and so was Everett McGill as Big Ed, who we haven't seen once in the series. So it's I don't know. I'm curious to see how this thing is going to wrap up. And I don't mean like wrap up like, well, everything's got to have a nice little bow to it. I'm just like, well, how's James going to come back? Is he just hanging out with that kid with the green glove for like, I mean, is that the only moment we have him? I don't think so. I mean, I've gotten hints that there's going to be more with him in the series, but we're kind of running out of time here. It's just the pace that this thing is going. It's a lot to wrap up in 6 hours. Now, 6 hours is 3 feature-length movies. That should be enough time to wrap up anything. But it's also, again, some of these parts, there's only like a handful of scenes and then it's over. So if they decide to do a 10-minute Dougie scene tying a shoe or something like that, it just kind of eats up the episode.
Yeah, my feeling at this point is like, well, if I had to venture a guess, at least not in terms of plot point so much as like the tone of the way it might end is like, it might be like the original series, but perhaps more positive in that there's going to be, I think, interpretations of it going on for however, forever to come. It's not going to be absolutely, outlined as to what everything means, but I think it is going to be more of a coherent, positive ending.
It's not going to be the Black Lodge drapes opening and you see a white light and Cooper and Laura hold hands and walk into the white light. I mean, it's not going to be like this happy Wizard of Oz kind of ending. It's just not.
Not happy, but yeah.
Yeah, but Mandy and I were even talking about on the watch along, like, because the last part is called "What's Your Name?" I think, or "What is your name?" And we were thinking, oh my goodness, is this gonna be where Cooper comes back, right? But he's still like in Dougie's life, and someone asks him, "What is your name?" And Cooper, of sound mind and body and spirit, will say Dougie Jones and just stay with Janie and Sonny Jim. That's a possibility.
Doing that.
I'm sorry?
I said I could see Lynch doing that, actually.
Right. And I asked Mandy, I said, would you find that a satisfactory ending? And she said no. I almost think it could work, but I think it would be disappointing that Cooper wasn't involved in some sort of FBI mystery, that he just remained Dougie Jones for the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like we have all of our opinions about these characters, but like underneath all of that is David Lynch's opinion about these characters. And it's like you don't know what they are, and it's just.
Well, the other thing is where does it, obviously, I mean, they're him and Mark Frost characters,
Mhm.
but and it almost seems like, are they really following the way they feel like these characters should be 25 years later, or are they treating some of these characters like they are some of the plot of this and just trying to, you know, catch us off guard with them? This is a show where you watch it, and then, at least for me, you kind of live with it for the next 7 days until the next part. So when a part like last week, you know, I felt like initially I didn't much care for the ending. I'm all right with it now, but initially I didn't much care for it. So that means that the next 7 days I'm going to be in that mind state.
Mhm.
So I kind of root for me to really like each part, because I know that if I don't, it's going to be a long week, and it's going to be a long week of YouTube comments, everyone getting all ticked off at me. So, you know, is that kind of thing. I mean, I'm so glad that I love this series as much as I do, because oh
Mhm.
my God, if I mean, there was a possibility. I didn't think there was a big one, but there was always a possibility that I was going to start watching this thing and be like, oh my goodness, what is this thing?
Mhm.
This is absolutely horrible. Thank God
Yeah.
I'm not feeling that way, but I very well could have, and it would have
Yeah.
been a very long summer.
Cameron, what were your hopes for Audrey? Like, what in your mind did you want her to be at?
I honestly didn't really care, except that I did have some thoughts of my own about possibly where I would like to have her be, but I wasn't like in my mind saying, well, if they don't do this, then I'm against it. Right.
Right.
My idea had always been that she was running the Great Northern, and that John Joe Sweegler had never come back for her. Cooper obviously was a doppelganger, so he's not around, and she was going to have to take care of her dad, like Johnny, like, because her dad would have been maybe invalid from the hit on the head from the fireplace. And I just imagine her just being a total witch running this Great Northern Hotel, and that would give her at least a starting point as to where to take her character. Obviously, as far as we know, that's not what's happening. But she is kind of in that witchy space. We just don't know yet the context of that space. I can say that scene, I'm okay with it now for the most part, but I do think it's a little overwritten or overacted. I can't decide which one. Maybe it's a little bit of both.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you know, it did play okay for me the second time because I knew what to expect. That first time, though, having that scene clock in at 11 minutes where two actors are basically not even moving, it's just the same four shots repeated over and over again, and we have no context as to really what they're talking about, or why we should even care. It made for a very long 11 minutes.
Yes.
And again, that may have been the point, that may have been the intention, but you knew that was going to be a breaking point for a lot of people. Again, we don't know the context of it, so we'll find out as we go along. But as an initial scene to start with Audrey, I think that something better could have been written and done to evoke the same feelings, the same understanding of where she's coming from and what the scene is about, than what we got. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe we'll look back and be like, oh, it was great. But I think Lynch could have done anything with Sherilyn Fenn. I think Lynch could do anything in this series and people would still be backing him 110%. Be like, it was great no matter what. And they're appalled that anybody could say anything different. But there's a lot of people out there saying things a lot more harsher than I ever said about the scene. I just said, you know what? I didn't like the scene. I thought she was overacting. I thought that the scene was overwritten, and the same stuff could have been solved in 5 minutes as 11 minutes. I saw the scene again. It didn't bother me as much the second time. I seen the third time. It doesn't bother me the third time. But you have to understand, a lot of people are only going to watch this one time. And
Right.
that's not a positive experience for them. So you have to just keep in mind that, right? Mm-hmm. That's all. And I know a lot of people will be like, who cares what other people think? It's I get it, but at the same time, though, Showtime cares. William TPQ says the Audrey scene was the cruelest trolling of all time. Katrina says she just seemed sincerely frustrated. William says, I feel like I can say anything I want about the new Twin Peaks because I don't disagree with any of Lynch or Frost's choices, but I will describe certain scenes as evil and trolling. Okay. Mad Max X says it seemed like Lynch just threw Audrey a bone, or the Audrey fans, Katrina says. William TPQ says 2 episodes in a row with no Mr. C is also a bit mean. I don't know. See, I'm under the impression, I'm probably wrong, but I'm under the impression that's why that kid was throwing up in the car. You know? I was thinking that Mr. C's already in town, and whoever comes in contact with him gets violently ill.
We still haven't seen him back with the part in the teaser when he's driving a car and he's walking down a dark hallway. So I'm with you. I think he is back in the town. I think he's cut his hair already too. And see, in those teasers, that's not Cooper. That's Mr. C pretending to be.
So you think that's what it is?
Yeah, I think because he's back playing as Cooper,
right?
Back in the town.
But we don't know that for sure. But that's what it seems like at this point. He's the only character that's mobile, right? Because Kentucky's stuck in Rancho Rosa. So yeah.
Because I got the vibe that he was still the doppelganger. That's what I came out of the teaser, him driving the car and walking.
And remember, I mean, we have Cooper who still needs to get back to the giant from that opening scene.
Right.
Because I firmly believe that opening scene obviously is going to take place later in the series, because when he says Richard and Linda, Cooper says, I understand. So obviously Cooper has to come in contact with Richard and Linda to understand that.
Maybe that scene, maybe he gets back to the giant in episode 17, because it talks about the past dictates the future. So that scene with the giant, he told a lot about the future coming up with Richard. But really, that's, you know what I mean? But we saw it as in the future where it hasn't happened yet.
Right. Well, I mean, this entire series is bouncing back and forth in time.
Yes,
I mean, we don't have a direct timeline as to when things are happening. Things are happening all over the place. Yeah, people are saying, who's Linda? We still don't know who Linda is. We've heard the name Linda said from that guy in the truck talking to Carl when they're getting a ride into town. A lot of people thought that was going to be Audrey, but that wasn't her. So, all right, guys. There's an article on Dazed, a website I've never heard of, and they talk about the screenplay that Mark Frost and David Lynch wrote, called One Saliva Bubble, which I had heard about for years. Around the time of the original Twin Peaks, they were always talking about that in like print, that David Lynch was getting ready to do a movie with Steve Martin and Martin Short called One Saliva Bubble, which obviously never happened. But someone dug up the script and they wrote this nice article on Dazed about how, how we were talking about how in this new series, it seems like Lynch is like pulling from a lot of things that he's put in other movies of his or ideas he's had for a while. Well, One Saliva Bubble is about people who swap bodies with other people. And there's a lot of Dougie references in it as to that type of personality. They also bring in characters named Gordon Cole, Mike, Bob, and Ike. It's very interesting.
When was this written again?
1987.
When the script was written. Okay,
yes.
So this is before original Twin Peaks.
Right. But what but it's quite apparent that this new series is a culmination of a lot of Lynch's ideas that he's had over the years, or other movies he's pulling from.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of imagery in this new series that is from his other movies, and not just the car headlight shot at night. I mean, there's a lot of other shots. But like, he didn't make Ronnie Rocket. He never made When Saliva Bubbles. So he's bringing in aspects of those screenplays into this series. So it makes sense. But I thought this article was really nice, just kind of bringing in saying like, hey, chances are, I mean, we don't know for sure, but chances are don't expect Cooper to be back until like the last episode. It says Lynch and Frost are happy stretching out a gag beyond what conventional standards dictate. That is true.
Maybe it gives me more patience, because I think like when you follow a series slowly, you get attached to certain things perhaps more, and then want to see them connected more in the new series, perhaps. I mean, that's just a guess. It's interesting. Like, I'm looking at, well, this is just something I said to a friend of mine recently, and I was thinking about Cooper in this season. It's like, if you think about what his journey in season 3, he's actually accomplishing probably a lot of the same things that Dale Cooper would have accomplished in the original series, but without being conscious of it. He's like accomplishing the same things, but in a Forrest Gump kind of way, where he's building these relationships and building these connections that are ultimately bringing him to the goal he's going to need. But he's doing it simply through being guided by these things that actually, the original Dale Cooper was guided by. He used these weird tactics of throwing rocks at bottles and things like that, and using dreams, interpreting dreams, subconscious things, and he's being guided by his subconscious basically in this new season. But he just doesn't have the full personality there with all of his one-liners, except for when he's mimicking somebody.
Well, I agree. I think that this new series is I've been saying this for a long time, that this new series is giving us everything we wanted to see happen, perhaps in a new series of Twin Peaks, but it's delivering it in a way that we didn't expect to see it.
Right.
I see a lot of people talking about the Ben Horn scene from the last part where he's talking about his bike. And for some reason, a lot of people in the Twin Peaks community did not like it. They thought that scene went on and on and on. And I was thinking, no, that's just how Ben Horn usually is, And I don't know. I actually thought it was very nice and touching. It was, one of the, there hasn't been a lot of emotional moments in this show because we're usually on to 500 characters in this thing. And, it was nice to actually pause for a minute and with a character that we already are invested in and let them speak their mind. I thought it was very sweet.
Yeah, that's another thing I'll talk more about Cooper. So I remember just as I came sort of to the end of to the original series, I was like, this character is like so like pure and lovable. Even in his flaws make him as perfect of a person almost as he is, in a way that you find out about his past failings, and it's like those are the things that drive him to do things so right, in the way he relates with Audrey or anybody else, and like it makes it so that in this new series, in this new season, we really kind of long to see him again, which is obviously what's causing so much of the tension and the pain as people wait for him to snap out of it. And so it just makes me hope, I don't know how long it's going to take, and I'm hoping he, like everyone else, I'm hoping he snaps out of it. But I'm just realizing that the way it's being set up, the longer it's drawn out, if he comes back in a traditional hoped for way, it's going to be one of the most emotional kind of moments in any of the seasons.
But we almost got it, I felt like, when he was in the restaurant with the Mitchum brothers.
Right, but that's like a taste of what it could be, if it fully gets realized,
Well, I think people might be really happy, and I think a lot of people will be really ticked off that, like, oh, we finally got this moment. Now the series should begin, and it's over.
Right. Yeah, so it almost has to happen as the last thing in order for people to get the point.
Right, but it also is going to be the thing that breaks the camel's back, too. And people will be like, well, okay, now we need a season 4 so that we can have Cooper back the way we want him.
Yeah, there's a lot of things would have to be placed just right for it to communicate.
And I got news for you. I don't think there's going to be a season 4. There are fewer and fewer articles being written about this series every new week.
Fewer and fewer?
Yeah. So it's lost a lot of national attention. But regardless of that, I think that Lynch and Frost deliberately made this series to be a standalone thing. And I don't think they can just whip up a season 4.
Right.
Nor do I think they want to.
Yeah. Unless it's like it would have to be like such a super secret, planned all along kind of thing.
which it doesn't seem like it was, because they would announce that at Comic-Con.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, yeah. Yep.
I mean, I think what some people's frustrations are is not so much. I mean, yeah, I think the Dougie thing is there, but I think what it comes down to is like, okay, Bill Hastings, the Matthew Lillard character, he dies in FBI police custody. And yet the next episode, Gordon's hanging out with like some call girl and they're discussing Blue Rose cases, which I love. But I think a lot of people are just like, well, what is the FBI doing here? Like, so many people are being killed. So many people are on drugs in Twin Peaks, and no one's doing anything about it. Hawk and Truman are just sitting around discussing the nature of the Black Lodge. And, meanwhile, Chad is like running the town with Red in terms of, dealing drugs and young hookers. You know what I mean? It's just like, whereas you felt in the original series, like the police were in on it. Like, for instance, when Truman pulls Cooper into the Double R and says, the Boathouse boys, we've been following the drug trade from Canada, right? I mean, there was actual police work going on. They weren't just sitting around waiting for the stars align and time presents itself, right? So I think that's where people are getting a little frustrated. There's very little police work in this thing. It's like things are just happening by chance. Which, I mean, I get it. I understand why they're doing that, but come on, 12 hours in, I can see why some people are getting a little restless. Like, let's get to it.
Well, we got Andy. I think that's the only investigation I've seen outside of the Laura Palm. The message from the log lady was Andy looking for the Richard Horn, and that scene didn't go anywhere. So
right, because the next scene we saw him, he was picking out chairs with Lucy.
I don't know if it was you that theorized about what exactly was going on with the negotiation with Showtime when Lynch dropped out and then came back in again, and what the deal was with. And you said it was likely the going from 9 episodes to 18 episodes. That's what it was. It was going to be 9, and then they went up to 18. I mean, 9 episodes would have been really tight, obviously, with what has gone on. But then I'm wondering if 18 brought it out so that there's these main themes that are, moving along at their pace, but then there's all these other smaller things on the side, things going on in in the roadhouse, all the people talking, and I'm wondering how much of it was finding that balance of having the main themes and then having these other ones fill in the space, but not necessarily have the weight they deserve. I don't know.
Well, I also firmly believe that the script that they shot for this new series is the 9 episodes.
Yeah,
and they're just bringing it up to 18. I don't think for an instant that they just wrote 9 more parts.
No. Yeah, but it's a matter of you've got the themes from 9 episodes being brought out, stretched into 18, and I wonder if much of what's irritating people is what's put in to make the the space created interesting, as it were. Not that they just wrote 9 more, but that they're trying to figure out, that balance.
In a month and a half, we're going to know everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to pretty much know where we stand with the whole thing. Right now, we can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah, I'm still thinking the pace is going to really ratchet up here in the particularly.
Well, but again, though, you don't know that.
Can't know.
You would think that,
mm-hmm.
But a lot of people thought that Cooper would be back by, part 8.
Well, everyone hopes that every episode.
no, but what I'm saying though is that you cannot say the plot's going to ratchet up because we don't know. I mean, the plot could slow down for all we know.
just like everybody said that the episode Laura is the one, and Let's Rock was going to be really ramp it up, and I don't think those episodes are really that rampant, in my opinion. Not like episodes 7 and 9. I think those were the 2 best episodes, plot and information wise, of the season so far.
I really liked those first 4 episodes a lot. I thought it was very smart of them to drop all of those on the same night. Yeah. My conclusion was correct. Cooper was out of the lodge by the end of the 4th episode, but he just was not Cooper anymore. I think that in a way, the original series, we were meant to fall in love with all the characters. This is almost like, and this is why I hope Wyndham Earl comes into it at some point, even if it's just a name check, because I feel like this whole series is like Cooper and Wyndham's chess game. Because like I was saying in the last part that like the original series, you could watch it and then you would go back and see more layers and then watch it again, see even more layers. In this new series, they like bring you in like middle of the layers. So it's like even to understand it really the first time, you're going to have to see this series like 3 or 4 times to understand the time, the timelines and all that stuff. So they're making it a very hard and challenging watch the first time out, which is very exciting to me as a viewer. But I understand why it's could be too much for some people.
Yeah, I guess one of the reasons I'm probably more optimistic is because the last time I followed a show this closely was Lost, which was basically they were forced to keep writing even though they had an ending in mind, and a lot of stuff just was put in midway through, and overall I liked it, but you could tell where it suffered because of other people's hands being put in the mix. Whereas this time, it's like while I may not follow every beat the way I hoped, I know that it's all in the same hands in the same season, with one intention in mind that was worked on from what I heard. 4 years they worked on this script together, Frost and Lynch, and that's what's going to come across. And there's a certain, I guess, purity to that I trust will, even if it's not fully understood the first time. There's something, like you mentioned, there's layers there that could probably be decoded over multiple viewings that were intended and not toyed with.
But do you think that was a wise move on their part to have a series go 18 hours where you have to watch it numerous times to even understand the first layer?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's a really good discussion is, who should the show appeal to? Is it the hardcore people who are going to do that, or should it appeal to, someone that Showtime would be happy it would appeal to a wider audience,
Well, let's be honest here. Lynch, obviously, you could tell right from the start that he didn't give a crap. You know what I mean? Like, I've mentioned this before, but I was saying for the longest time that they were going to bring in new characters and then they would get maybe a hint about Cooper or whatever like that. And that would lead us into a bigger mystery. So it would bring the new fans into this wider mythology. No, Lynch just began it in the Black Lodge. Exactly the way he really should have. I mean, he did it, in my opinion, perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's perfectly for me because of who I am and how I feel about the show. It's not perfect for everyone who's like, hey, I really hear the cool things about this Twin Peaks. Let me watch this Return. There was no diving in to the Return if you'd never seen the original series.
Right.
There was no diving into the Return if you had not kind of internalized the original series at some point. It was just made for the hardcore people, and the series, unfortunately, in terms of ratings and stuff like that, has suffered ever since. But I think in 10 years, I think once the whole thing's on Blu-ray or streaming or whatever like that, I think it will pick up. But it's only going to pick up if they stick the landing. It can't be just some random ending just cobbled together and then off we go. I mean, it has to give us. It has to. I don't care what it is, but it has to give us just an amazing, transcendent ending. And Lynch knows how to do endings. I mean, if you watch any of his movies, I mean, with the exception of Inland Empire, I mean, they've all had like just stupendous endings. Inland Empire could have ended, at any moment in that movie, and you would have felt the same thing at the end of that movie. So, I'm curious to see how is he going to end this thing?
Yeah,
and because most of his movies have happy endings, so I'm really interested to know how he's going to end this thing.
What do you think's the last image going to be? Cooper, Laura, or Julie Cruz singing?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. If I say anything, that's gonna be like, oh, Cameron's gonna be disappointed if they don't give me that, and that's not true at all. So got people in the chat saying I'm a Lynchian. I don't care about new fans. So sorry, Eric.
Well, I like it, so hey.
Right. But there are, I mean, Showtime, the investors, they care about new fans. Mad Max X says Julie Cruz will be the last performance. That's what we all think, but Lynch hasn't given much of what we think is going to happen in this series. So chances are Julie Cruz will be the end of part 15. Let's see here. Cause says I suspect, assuming it ends well and wraps most things up, that the popularity will grow, but that won't happen if Showtime pulls it 3 weeks later. That is true. Showtime is pulling it 3 weeks after it's over. That's part of Lynch's contract. So it's interesting. It's like, what is he going to do with it? There hasn't been a Blu-ray announcement yet. I mean,
download them now while you can.
Lynch might hold on to this, kind of like the way Quentin Tarantino did with Jackie Brown. Quentin did not like the reaction that Jackie Brown got, and so he held on to it for no DVD release until 2003 when the film came out in 97. So he created a situation where people wanted to have Jackie Brown, and so when they got it, they appreciated it. I don't know. Could Lynch do that? Could Lynch say, hey, I know people really like the series, but there was also people who didn't like the series. What if I hold on to this thing for 2 years and then release it? Oh, then everyone loves it now. Reggie says, I think it will end with Cooper moving to Twin Peaks with Janie and Sonny Jim. Well, here's the thing. He's either going to end up with Janie and Sonny Jim, or those two characters are going to be killed. if Hutch and Chantel take him out, because they are supposed to kill 2 people in Vegas. Reggie says Mark Frost has been talking about a Blu-ray release. Okay, good. But there has not been anything official yet. But Mark Frost, I believe, even said that he wanted to put On the Air also with this Blu-ray release, which would be literally insane if you combined On the Air with this new series. I just saw the fan film that was made for the Twin Peaks Festival. That one. The
one with the lake.
The Pearl Lakes.
Yeah, it had the Garmin Boja in it and all that.
Yeah, I thought it was very nice, and it made me it made me think I need to get on stuff like that and make one of those films for the festival or something like that, because I've always wanted to do sort of my own little Twin Peaks short film, not have it be canon, but just do my own thing. I've been wanting to do that since '92. I remember talking to kids in high school, like, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this like Twin Peaks short film," and they're all, "Great. What's Twin Peaks?" And it was great. I even had a girl like cast as Laura Palmer and everything. It was fantastic. But we never ended up doing it.
What would your story be? What would be your vision of something? Like, what would you focus on?
Well, now it's kind of obsolete. But my focus would have been I always wanted to just tell a simple story of well, two things. One would be Cooper as the doppelganger with Annie 25 years later, and she realizing obviously that this man she's with is not the man she fell in love with, and sort of play on the idea of a woman who wakes up one day and realizes her husband is no longer the same guy he was when they met when they were 20. The other thing would be I always thought it would be very cool to do a Cooper Earl Caroline story.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see that.
But have it not tie in to anything Twin Peaks-ish. Like, just it's own isolated story. Almost like the Silence of the Lambs feel. Like that 1991 FBI Orion Pictures kind of, where it's just its own story, but you're dealing with Cooper, Earl, and Caroline. And in fact, back in 2006, I actually talked to Lynch Frost Productions about, could I get the rights to do a short film about that? And that's when I got the hinting that they were going to be moving forward with something Twin Peaks-ish at some point, and they weren't sure if they wanted to let someone have the go-ahead to use the characters in a spin-off kind of thing. Huh. But I didn't know it was going to be a series. At that point, there was rumors about a graphic novel, but there's always been an image in my head that I've carried with me since 1992 of something that I've always wanted to see. And I always thought, like, oh, that, because Lynch always talks about the singular image. And my image would have been Annie and Cooper. It's late at night. Obviously, you have the window with the moonlight on their bed, and the doppelganger is Cooper, whatever, gets up from the bed and stands by the window, and Annie is laying in bed, and she wakes up and she says, why don't you come back to bed? It's late, blah, blah, blah. And he looks at her, and while she's pulling up the sheets, from his point of view, Annie's wrapping herself in plastic.
Oh, damn.
And I thought, that is something I've always wanted to see on film. So,
wow.
Let's take some of these comments here that we've been getting over the past week. Astro Gypsy says, I didn't like the Audrey bit, but do you think Lynch or Frost would be willing to sacrifice the integrity of the work just to F with the audience or a problematic actor? I guess, maybe, but I'm more inclined to believe it is a piece with the work, well done or not.
Yeah, there's so much, like, obviously in the Audrey scene, there's so many names dropped, so many plot points that it's like, what do you have to write into another scene for all that to make sense? It's a lot.
There's a lot of names to remember in this series. That's the most frustrating part for me, is I forget. You see a character in one episode, and then like 3, 4, or 5 episodes later, they pop up again. I'm like, oh, I forgot he was even in the show.
Well, that's what was kind of neat about Lorraine. She had her own theme song, so we always knew when she was around, because that weird janky rap song would start, and we knew it was time for Lorraine to come on, and then she was killed. So Everybody here needed their own theme song.
Do you think the Philip Jeffries box thing in Argentina is going to come back into play at all?
I forgot about that scene.
I don't know if that's going to come back. They have to answer something about Philip Jeffries, right? I mean, you can't just leave it up for grabs. Like, you have to tell us at least who Mr. C was talking to in part 2 in the motel room after he took out Daria, right? Can't leave that open-ended. I mean, let's there's going to be a lot of open-ended things in this thing, but I mean, there's certain things that they're going to have to. I mean, like, look, we're never going to find out what was going on with the warden and whatever it was. What was that thing that the doppelganger kept saying to him?
Mr. Strawberry?
Yeah, like nobody cares, you know. Everyone's like, what's going on with Mr. Strawberry? Well, it's the same thing with like Mr. Reindeer and all that stuff and Wild at Heart. Like, nobody cares. I mean, it was just the fact that he had some dirt on him. I mean, that's it. I would be surprised if that comes back into play at all.
In the original season 2, was that ending, edited together, established, released, before or after they knew it was going to be canceled? I mean, was that?
No, they didn't. They thought they were going to get canceled, so they created an ending that had a ton of cliffhangers on it, so that ABC would not cancel them. But ABC canceled them anyway.
Okay. Okay, but yeah. So I mean,
so if they knew they weren't coming back for season 3, they've already said that they would have changed the ending of season 2.
Okay, so just by that, my guess is it'll be, I mean, I don't know about a chipper kind of happy ending, but it's going to be, I think a largely positive, like I said before, a more positive note that everything will end on than season 2. Just my guess.
That's what I think. I think I think there's going to be some sort of happy ending.
Yeah.
And my happy ending has always been, of course, I'm going to be wrong, but I have been right on about some things in this series. I feel like Cooper will be back in some form. Maybe Cooper will be Dougie, choose to be Dougie. But I think at the end of this series, I still maintain Laura is alive and she's back at home with her mom.
Yeah, that's an interesting question I have, is like, assuming, even if it's the last scene of the season, assuming Cooper comes back entirely, will his brain come back side by side, with all that he knows, he has experienced as Dougie Jones, so that he's,
right.
Or will it replace it and then he goes, oh, wait a second, what have I been doing?
No, I'm thinking that he's going to have everything come back as Cooper and choose to be Dougie Jones. Not slow Dougie Jones, but just Cooper.
Right.
As Dougie Jones.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
But I think that it's going to be the ending of the series is going to be her mom, because her mom's in a really dark place. Laura's mom's been in a dark place for a while. So, but I'd love to see just the whole thing go full circle with Sarah in the morning yelling, Laura, breakfast, and Laura comes down the staircase as opposed to the empty staircase. That, to me, would just be perfect.
And turns the fan off on her way down.
Beautiful.
It doesn't have to be on anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if Laura came down and then we cut to the fan and the fan just slows down and stops and that's the end, I would think this like the greatest series of all time. I get chills just thinking about that, but we all know that's not going to happen.
It's so dangerous to speculate about these things, because once it's said, that's not the thing that's going to happen.
The other thing that could happen is if its future isn't past, they might do it in a way where they might reverse it all and have it so that Cooper never has to come to town.
Well, I mean, yeah, we're starting to get to that point where,
I mean, maybe Laura doesn't come down as a 40-year-old woman who's been stuck in the lodge. Maybe she comes down as the 17-year-old, and ends with Leland. Leland left for work. He's at the Great Northern, and Laura leaves and ends up,
Yeah, With all the time stuff being sort of factored in here with the sci-fi element there, that's sort of becoming plausible. But at the same time, there's so much negative, even without Laura, even before Cooper comes into town, there's so much negative unresolved going on in Twin Peaks that it's not necessarily a happy picture, if only some of it gets reversed, I mean, it's terrible.
But what if it all reverses?
Like, what's all of it though? All of it spans.
Well, even if Laura comes back, Teresa's still dead, right? So they would have to almost reverse it to the point where Leland was never possessed by Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or back to, it's also interconnected, and maybe even as far back as the atomic bomb going off.
Well, then you're getting to Lost Season 5 territory where they have to stop the bomb.
Right. No, that's true.
And then in stopping the bomb, they create the bomb. So
right. Paradox.
Exactly.
I'm just saying that it seems like the negative does go back that far. So I'm just saying, is it the happiest of endings? What's the stopping point?
I don't know. I just want to make sure I don't break my TV at the end of part 18.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I don't see an ending where I get up and I throw my TV out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And then come onto this podcast and start throwing up cream corn. I want an ending that makes me just jump out of my seat and just that's the most beautiful, most poetic, most, just perfect ending ever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what it is. I want to feel like a perfect ending.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be good, but like you're mentioning, I think there's gonna be a lot of piecing things together afterwards for a while, clicking into place. It's not going to be crystal clear right away.
Are you saying about the overall series? Or are you talking about just like specific things? I think the ending overall has to make sense.
Yeah, no, I think it'll basically, at the most basic level, it's going to make sense, I think. But some of it's going to feel maybe a little episode 8-ish, some symbolism, some things going on that are very abstract. But what do I know?
Do you think that they should have kept part 8 for part 18?
Well, so much of it is setting up stuff that's happened, I think.
Well, we hope.
Well, it's not.
We don't know that for sure. It could just be
that's true.
A standalone prequel. That's
true. A lot of that's not much of it has at least decisively connected to what's happened afterwards yet. We've guessed who some of the characters are, but
right. But anytime anyone says that Sarah Palmer was the one that got the frog moth, people say that girl was Hispanic,
Right.
But that could have been just Lynch casting. It doesn't. We never got a name, so we don't know who that is.
Mm-hmm.
But because when Sarah's in the convenience store screaming about things have happened to me, I freaked out Mandy the other day by suggesting a frog moth had climbed into Sarah's mouth. So
I'm craving turkey jerky now.
Oh yeah. Oh, Mandy, I'm seeing people all over the internet saying that the turkey jerky was a reference to that Laura Palmer line, "Turkey in the corn," and I'm like,
no.
Yeah.
No, it can't be. No. And you know what too, like we have to remember two things. Kyle did say at one point that I don't know if he said it wraps up, but there is a conclusion.
Right.
That and two, like Lynch and Frost love Twin Peaks. I don't think that they would do anything to harm that. I think they're still going to. I think we still will be satisfied. We just might be super confused too. But I think there'll be enough beautiful moments that we'll be like, okay, that ended well. So I'm confident. So we'll see.
I'm thinking positive emotion with side by side with temporary confusion at the same time. That's kind of the feeling.
A lot of people are saying, Mandy, that we dropped the ball in discussing the Gordon Albert scene when after the French girl leaves, that they assume that Gordon grabbing Albert by the shoulder and squeezing 3 times and their conversation was all in code.
Oh,
I didn't I don't feel that at all. I feel like it was just a silly conversation between Gordon and Albert. I don't feel like there was any code there at all.
Well, I think they're connecting it to the red dresses.
There's that. They're saying that the French lady was Lil, like she was like the move she was making was giving Gordon a clue. No, she was hamming it up, and he was hamming it up. I mean, it's all
that'd be awesome and hilarious if they managed that, but I don't know.
Right, because if you were gonna do that, then you would have had Gordon and Albert like discuss it right after she left. Like, okay, she did this, she did that, blah 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 blah.
But they do have a very unspoken kind of way of conversing, Gordon and Albert. I feel. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't believe it for 1 second though. That it's some code, because when Albert says, "What kind of wine were you drinking?" or something like that, it's just like they're like, "Oh, that's code because there's only like 1 or 2 types of wine." Like, some Lynch fans need to just calm down. Sometimes a telephone pole is just a telephone pole.
Yeah, I don't buy it, but man, that would be great.
Until they tell me something different, it just seemed like a scene of what it was,
Yeah, I did laugh probably the whole scene, but partially an annoyed laugh, partially an amused laugh. It was funny.
I don't think people would have had a problem with that scene if it wasn't quickly followed up by the Audrey scene, because it was just 2 of them in a row almost of just long drawn out scenes. I think that's why people, Mandy and I were talking about the Audrey scene, about how that was probably the tipping point for a lot of people in that episode, because it was Audrey, but it was also the fact that it was testing the patience of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
her husband.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
her husband character did make me laugh a little bit.
No, in retrospect, when you rewatch that scene, I mean, he's very good in that scene, but
it's that last shot that cracked me up.
It needs to go somewhere, because if it doesn't go anywhere, that subplot will be one of the torpedoes that takes down the show for a lot of people.
Yeah. Would you say that the Twin Peaks, as it was introduced in the original series, is I don't know, morally better or worse than season 3? So there's a lot of stuff going on right from the start. I mean, would you say that all that has happened post, Bob taking over Coop, everything after that has made Twin Peaks worse, or it's stayed the same, or what?
Well, Jean Reno said that, made that wonderful speech about how when Cooper came to town, everyone was happy, and then Cooper came to town, started exposing everything, and so maybe if Cooper dies, the evil dies with him. But it seems like Bob because Bob, when he was in Leland, Bob could hide and come out during, every so often. When Bob was in Cooper, he was just Bob. I mean, that's why when that awesome scene in part 1, when he just is driving down the road to American Woman, he gets out of the car, and that is just who Bob is. He's not someone who has to hide anymore. He is now just full front and center. He walks down the road, someone comes at him with a shotgun, he just grabs a shotgun, beats the guy's head in. He doesn't have to hide in some mild-mannered guy who works at the Great Northern Hotel anymore. And with his FBI credentials and police contacts, I mean, he managed to stay off the radar for 25 years.
Yeah, I guess I'm talking about more, not so much. I mean, obviously, Bob is worse in that he's more dangerous in that way. How much would you say that has impacted specifically Twin Peaks in the way, like, how different does Twin Peaks look now as compared to how it did in the original series?
Well, I mean, at the end of season 2, except for Nadine waking up from her coma and kind of ruining Ed and Norma's plans, it almost seems like everybody else is in a more positive place at the end of part 2. I mean, Bobby and Shelley are together. They're doing the whole rah, 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 rah in the diner and stuff. And Heidi's coming back in and giggling again. And it seems like everything's on track except for when Cooper wakes up and slams his head into the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
That almost seems to be just like, I almost think the moment he cracked his head in the mirror, that's what shattered Twin Peaks into a million pieces.
Yeah, so I feel like though it's more like a reshattering, because I just remember as I'm being introduced to Twin Peaks, as things get exposed and exposed and exposed, it's like everyone's cheating on everyone. There's these shady deals going on behind the scenes all the time. There's, everything
that's in every small town in America.
Right. Well, that's sort of the point, I suppose. But I mean, it's like we're being like reintroduced to the dark Twin Peaks again, even though it lightened up kind of by the end of the original series. It's like it put it back to where it was almost. I don't know.
Well, I think we also feel that way because we haven't spent a lot of time in the town.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do spend the time in the town, we're either at the Double R or we're in Ben Horn's office. We haven't really seen the town. We're not at Big Ed's Gas Farm. We're not with Ben Horn as he's walking through the Great Northern. We're not seeing characters eating in the dining hall. We're in very specific places.
Yeah.
We get a callback to the sawmill at the beginning of part 1 where we see it burnt down and isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we see it when Bobby's throwing the thing on the ground, because obviously for some reason they forgot that the sawmill was directly across the street from the sheriff's station. So we got that in the back of the shot the whole time, which is insane. Like, Lynch, all you had to do was move 5 feet into the left and you wouldn't have gotten it in the shot. But all right. I hope there's method to this madness as to why you're showing us the sawmill across the street. If the sawmill was really across the street when it was on fire in season 1, man, that sheriff station would have. Oh my goodness! You know what I mean? Knowing that Leo Johnson is trying to set fire to a sawmill and take out Shelley, and Catherine Martell is there. All this happening directly across the street from the sheriff station. No.
And they were always looking for that red Corvette, and it just drives past the cops like. Yeah. And I think too, like in original Twin Peaks, I mean, people had dinner together. There was community. We were in people's houses. People were, regardless of all the darkness that was going on, they were very isolated incidents. So people were still moving forward with their lives. James and Donna were building relationships, and other people, Nadine and Mike and all that, people were kind of happy. And we haven't seen any of that. We haven't seen, the only house that we've seen is Stephen and Becky's, and that's really it. So there is no community right now, and yeah, everything is just pretty miserable.
What do you think about these theories going around that I keep getting contacted about almost on a daily basis, saying that Agent Cooper is still in the lodge? I'm like, what are you talking about? Agent Cooper still in the lodge? Dougie got zapped to the lodge, and Cooper came out and took Dougie's place.
Came out of an electrical socket. How much clearer can that be? I don't know.
And yet, ironically, not the strangest thing to have happened in the last 12 episodes.
No.
I don't want to see Albert bad in any way. I want to see.
Yeah,
Albert
I have heard more than one person say they.
guy.
Yeah, I've heard more than one person say they have some weird suspicion of Albert. Actually, I don't know about the whole Bob connection, but at least Albert having ulterior motives yet to be revealed. But I
don't believe it, because he came clean to Gordon.
Yeah,
about what happened in the past, and even then, it wasn't like he was lying to Gordon. He just didn't think it was any big deal until it came up in the jails, in the prison. Then he realized it was a big deal, and he immediately came clean. And he's always talking with Gordon, like, privately and secretly about stuff. So
yeah.
And Albert's he's an OG. He's not gonna betray Gordon Cole. I've also heard the insane theory that this is all going to build up to another atom bomb explosion. That they're just going to like throw an atom bomb into the Black Lodge or something like that. Like that would do anything.
Oh.
I mean, it'd be fascinating if it just ends with Bob in a bubble just flying into outer space onto another planet. Let's get into dangerous territory here. What story is that, Charlie? That's got to be one of the worst episode titles I've ever heard. Which probably means it's going to be probably one of the best episodes of the series.
How about you've got to say that line the way you think it's going to be said.
Oh, what story is that, Charlie?
Yeah, it's almost exactly what I thought. Sarcastically, what story is that, Charlie?
Yeah, but the real line is going to be, what effing story is that, effing Charlie? You know, so that's gonna be the line from Audrey. But okay, so what do we think is going to happen tomorrow? Anything exciting? Isn't tomorrow supposed to be the day that Truman and Hawk go to the Black Lodge?
Yeah. I think some of the really very separate stories, at least maybe two of them, are going to slam together tomorrow.
I mean, is this thing going to end or keep going? Like, is it going to be like basically like an early Tarantino movie where like all the parties are going to meet at the same coordinates at the same place? And
it looks like they're writing to that. It really does.
But what are they going to do if they're all at the same spot? Are they going to fight it out like King Arthur style?
Getting too specific.
No, because there's too many King Arthur references in this series. I mean, we're gonna have like an Excalibur with Mike the One-Armed Man being Merlin.
We're gonna get a lot of Kyle. I think we're gonna get a lot of Kyle, either as Dougie or Mr. C, because he wasn't in the last episode. What, 5 seconds?
Okay. Do you think Mr. C is in Sarah Palmer's kitchen? Do you think she's tied up the bagger boy?
I thought it was the white horse.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, I got a white horse in my kitchen.
Just as Hawk's walking away, you just hear in the background.
Didn't she see the white horse in her living room at one point?
Yeah, and in her bedroom.
Yeah,
which cracks me up because I know there's new owners at the Laura Palmer house now, but I would love to talk to the original owners and be like, okay, how on earth did they get that white horse up the stairs and in that bedroom to shoot? Just for that one shot and Firewalk with Me. I bet you that had to have been a soundstage. I can't even imagine that. Them bringing up the white horse on just pooping up the stairs and just, going into the bedroom. Either that or when Cheryl Lee like flipped out at David because he brought in a pig's head or pig's carcass, and when she looked up when Leland was on top of her, she was supposed to originally see a pig body, and then that became Leland. and Cheryl Lee, who of course is totally PETA, said no, I'm not doing that. So that scene could have been far worse. Or been one of the many, many, many missing pieces that we still have not seen. Tony, real quick, overall impressions of the series so far.
I'm really enjoying it. I mean, there's frustration parts, but I get it. It is what it is. But I'm happy with it. I like the suspense of what's going to happen. I like trying to connect all the dots, and I think we're in for a great ride the last 6 episodes.
Fingers crossed. I'm hoping for the best here. All right, Eric, you're the newbie here.
Yeah.
What do you tell us what you think of the overall show so far?
I mean, it's held my attention in a way that, it's been years, probably Lost was probably the last time something held my attention this way. So definitely.
But your attention has only been held for about 2 months since you've watched all 3 seasons. And
yeah, I've started a couple other series before this. Didn't follow through on this one's different. So, and I'd say I am optimistic that it's gonna that it's going to satisfy us. Yeah, I definitely am having a very positive experience. And you know what I like about it is when I was into Lost, it was the fan community experience that kept me going, and everything else I've binged afterwards, or it was Netflix, like what was it? Stranger Things, I enjoyed that, but it's all at once. It's not the same thing. When it's week to week like this, it's conversations like this that make it really fun, I think. So I've missed that. It's been good.
Yeah, I agree with Hal. Tomorrow, Sonny Jim will finally get his gym set. I thought that was going to happen actually last week, after when they were playing catch, that up the road they would see a truck coming up to deliver it or something. Because I mean, they were out there on the yard already, So, but maybe we'll go back and actually find out what's going on with the 119 lady.
Oh yeah.
Or are we never? Or are we never going to go back to that?
See if the red balloons deflated a bit more.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to get an answer about these red balloons. I think it's just something. It's like Dr. Jacoby Shovels. It's just there.
You know what's going to happen next episode are great and wonderful, frustrating, beautiful things. That's it. And I love not being able to guess a single thing. That's what is so enticing about the show, is that we have no idea.